We believe the evidence that we will provide today will show that a coordinated, unlawful, and substantially resourced absentee ballot scheme operated during the 2018 general election in Bladen and Robinson counties.
If some of the things hadn't been filled in, we would fill in the ones who had not been filled in.
So if it was unsealed and the ballot was not completely voted, you would fill in the other offices?
Yes, ma'am.
And where would you do that?
Either at the office or at the home.
And who would have directed you to do that?
And we were directed by Mr. Dallas. I think the sheriff, Congress, and then I can't remember what the other one was that was up top. But those three were the main three that the voters were concerned with voting. Just pick a block and fill it in on them.
Were you directed to mark a ballot of a particular candidate in those other races?
No.
And so do you believe that was Mr. Dallas working for any of those other races?
Not to my knowledge. Basically what we would do, well, what I would do would be just about vote whoever was the Republican on the thing, as far as I would go.
Was there a reason you just didn't leave the ballot blank for the offices that were not voted?
Because I guess it didn't want to throw up a red flag with the Board of Elections as to why is there so many ballots that there's only these three people that are being voted for.
Was that brought to your attention of why you were doing that?
Yes, ma'am.
And who brought that to your attention?
Mr. Dallas.
This is Lisa Britt, a Republican campaign worker who collected ballots in North Carolina's 9th District, where Republican Mark Harris was 905 votes ahead of Democrat Dan McCready before the North Carolina Board of Elections refused to certify the results. It turns out that a man named Leslie McCrae Dowless, a Bladen County political operative, was hired by the Republican candidate and had been paying campaign workers to collect absentee ballot request forms and the actual absentee ballots. His employees then returned those ballots to him, where he completed and mailed in incomplete or blank ballots for Republican candidates, while his employees falsely signed as witnesses. He even filled out absentee ballots for dead people, and he did this for more than 1,000 ballots, more than enough to overcome the 905 vote margin of victory, quote unquote, for Republican congressional candidate Mark Harris. And when news broke of the scheme, Harris assured reporters that he wouldn't have ever hired him had he known what he was doing, which sounds reasonable, except that Dallas is a convicted felon who faced jail time for fraud and perjury. And I'm no campaign manager, but maybe not the best idea to bring someone onto your campaign for Congress who can't manage to stay out of jail. And just for good measure, in case there was still any doubt about Republican Mark Harris's character or judgment, throughout this whole process between when this fraud was first discovered and now, Harris has been urging the state to certify him as the winner. At today's North Carolina State Board of Elections hearing, Lisa Britt explained in detail Dallas's scheme not only to commit fraud on behalf of the GOP, but also shared a letter that Dallas gave to her instructing her to lie about the whole thing, to claim that there had been no wrongdoing, and then, for good measure, to plead the fifth. At a meeting prior to the hearing, Dallas instructed his employees to deny they had ever collected absentee ballots and said, quote, "As long as we stick together, we'll be fine." Now, likely one of two things will happen, which is that after hearing the evidence, Republican Mark Harris will be declared the winner if the board finds that the fraudulent activity has had no effect on the outcome, or, more likely, that a new election will be ordered. Call me old-fashioned, but I'm of the mind that when you hire someone who cheats for your campaign and then gets caught, that you know, lose. But hey, I'm not the one who's been railing against made-up fraud in our elections. Trump and Republicans have taken a supposed hardline stance against voter fraud, falsely claiming that 3 to 5 million people voted illegally in 2016.
You think millions of people voted illegal? There is no evidence that it happened in millions of votes in California. I guess the question is, when you're president, can you just offer a theory that has no evidence behind it, or does he have to tighten up his standards of proof?
I think he's done a great job.
But according to PolitiFact, that claim is outright false, and there's no evidence of any statistical significance that voter fraud is occurring, much less widespread. Trump even created a voter fraud commission headed by Chris Kobach, notorious for suppressing votes in Kansas, which is like if he put a fossil fuel lobbyist in charge of the EPA or suggested creating a cybersecurity task force with Russia. But the commission was ultimately disbanded when they found no evidence to support the claim that millions had voted illegally in the presidential election and cost Trump the popular vote. Almost like forming a commission to prove a lie that Trump told himself to justify losing the popular vote by over 3 million votes wasn't a good idea. So when voters head to the polls in North Carolina's 9th district, be sure to fill in your choices and seal your envelopes completely, because if not, something tells me you'll be stuck voting for
whoever was the Republican.